People have been seeing them for a long time. People have had contact, including our government. So yes, UFOs are real.
It's really a religious kind of impulse that there's somebody out there vastly superior to us that knows we're here, and that's religion.
There's a preponderance, there's an abundance of evidence that should shift the consensus now in the open source world.
Former President Obama's revelation that aliens are real caused an inevitable avalanche of speculation, especially among those who research this stuff for a living. Amid the ensuing chaos, Obama walked it back. I meant they probably exist, he said, but I don't know any better than you. Case closed then, until President Trump said this.
He gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know?
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Well, the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so if you want to make an announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
Well, the obvious interpretation is that if Obama gave classified information, then it must be true, and we may soon find out. The president has instructed US agencies, including the Department of War, to begin identifying and releasing government files on UFOs, UAPs, and aliens. Well, Jeremy Corbell, a filmmaker and renowned UFO researcher, is meeting with government officials today, and he joins me now. Jeremy Corbell, I mean, it's all fascinating stuff for the alien layman's like myself. It certainly looked to me that when President Obama said what he initially said to Brian Tyler Cohen, he meant it. And then when there was this huge furore afterwards, he slightly reined things back. But it certainly in the moment looked like he believed aliens do exist.
Yeah, well, I guess reality is not what it used to be. You know, to see that from a president, a former president, without caveat, just saying it, and then, you know, saying a bunch of other things that were actually inaccurate. It was a powerful moment, but it was not an announcement. Even before President Trump on the plane, it was not an announcement. It was an opportunity. So any of us that have gone to Congress, have testified under oath, we see it as an opportunity. Nothing has been planned with this whole thing that we've been seeing over the last, you know, since 2017. It's been provoked. You know, we've provoked our government with hearings on UAP. We've forced public statements, and journalism like this, Piers, this is has led to this change. So the collective public interest and demand is what's really gotten us here, and it's astonishing. The fuse is lit, but it's, you know, it's time to press our government, our governments.
I mean, to me, given the size of the universe, it always, to me, 100% certainty there must be other things out there. The question then becomes, have they visited our planet? And then you have the whole Roswell, Area 51, the 50s, the pictures that came out of apparently aliens being dissected and so on, and the whole conspiracy theory raging ever since about this. Let me just go through some basic Q&A with you. Do you believe aliens exist? One.
Yeah, that's not a matter of belief. It's either true or it's not true. And so I've aimed to find out. You said yourself, you didn't say it in these exact words, but it's statistically improbable to the highest degree that there's not intelligent life that has had more time to develop than us. But the big question that we couldn't ask 10 years ago that you just said is not just do aliens exist? When you look out at the stars and you see, you know, suns with orbiting planets, yeah, of course they do. But you asked the question, are they visiting here? Have they been here? And, you know, look, for whatever it's worth to you, I've dedicated with my mentor in journalism, who's done it for 40 years. I've dedicated 20 years of my life to this. UFOs are real. Sometimes they are occupied. This is an informed opinion. Oddly, it's not a political issue. People can handle the truth of that. And this has been a decades-long immaculate deception. And I've been told not to kick the sleeping dog. You know, they're afraid of something about telling the public, your government and mine, under the Five Eyes Alliance. So, you know, who are these gatekeepers? What's going on? Why haven't they told us? There's a really clear an easy answer for that. And I've been told it many times. And, I think we're at a place now, sorry for the long answer, but you asked a big question. We're at a place now where people like you are talking about it and understanding it. And that's not because you just came up with it. It's because people have been seeing them for a long time. People have had contact, including our government. So yes, UFOs are real. Sometimes they're occupied, and under oath in Congress, people in position to know have told you so. And so now we have to confront that and see what it means to be a human.
So I asked you a big question, and you gave a long, detailed answer. And you've raised a big question, which is, your big thing is government transparency. Why would governments be so keen to stop the public from knowing the truth about any visiting aliens? Why not just embrace it? Say, yeah, we've got this exciting thing, this alien beamed down from planet Tharg, and we're keeping it at Area 51. In other words, why make such a determined, apparent effort to suppress it?
This is such a terrestrial thing that it's almost hilarious, but people will understand it right away. During the atomic era, we created an apparatus of compartmentalization because we needed competitive technological advantage. And I think your viewers understand exactly what I'm talking about. So in that architecture of the atomic programs, suddenly there was better sensor systems and there was appearing to be more UAP, which really just means UFO for people that want to know, contact. And so what they did was very smart. They utilized the atomic program's apparatus for compartmentalization because it kind of failed us a little bit during the atomic era with Los Alamos. And they said, okay, until we figure out what's going on, two things. One, national security. It's not they're trying to keep the nature of reality away from human beings. It's one, national security. Is this from somewhere else, or is this a competitive adversarial nation? So they had to determine that. Once they realized that this wasn't Russia, that it wasn't China, that it dates back to the beginning of recorded human history, and there's an increased interest of what we call UFOs, UAP, the second reason was strategic surprise and national sovereignty and advantage. And in fact, there was a bond between your country and mine and three others. And we decided that we're going to study this and we're going to look for, check this out, derivative technologies from exploitation programs. So I totally get it. I understand. The problem is that the reason why we talk about UFOs is because people see them. It's not something that they get from movies. They're in movies because people have seen them, engaged them. Our government doesn't know the full answer either. And that's the issue too. What can you tell people if you don't know the full answer? I have actually proposed to people in our government officially a 4-step plan that I think is the best way to bring forward this actual truth.
So a couple of weeks ago, you released 2 videos that were purportedly captured by US military drones in the Middle East. One of the videos appears to show 3 objects flying in a triangular pattern. Let's take a look at this. And as we're looking at it, just talk me through what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So let me just explain to you real quick. I'll walk you through it. What you're seeing looks like Pong, the video game. You see 3 lights. What I've actually done, Piers, with my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, is we've released 15 assets over the last number of years that have come to us to educate the American public on what thermal footage is. So you see black and white, it's heat, and you're seeing 3 objects that are emitting some sort of signature, they call it. They're in formation. Now, I'm not saying this. This is part of an archive that was leaked to journalists that comes from them that says these are UAP, and this is one example. This is one of the least interesting videos that I've released, but it shows a formation of unidentifieds, what they called, not me, our government intelligence agencies called UAP. The last one I released, that's the one that they didn't want me to release. It showed one of what we call the 5 observables of UFOs that they have designated, our government and yours. And that first observable is called instantaneous acceleration. It's not traditional propulsion. So when you see something like this is to acclimate the American and global public to what military film footage looks like. George Knapp and I have released 15 different pieces of evidence. The last one was a banger. The last one, undeniably, through our government's own analysis, which is what I'm showing you, shows instantaneous acceleration, something that we know physics can do, but any human being would turn into jelly if you were able to. It's called inertia. Look it up. Great word. I had to learn it, right? Instantaneous acceleration means the G-forces would just turn the human body into jelly. You have at your ability now to go online and watch the government's analysis of a UFO, a UAP that they said is UAP, that instantaneously accelerates to the right if you're looking at the footage. It's supposed to be impossible. Problem is, we now see that it's not. We've theorized about it. Witnesses have explained it. Commander David Fravor in 2004 chased a UFO for the United States military and testified under oath in front of Congress that he did so, that it wasn't ours, and that they had it on radar on lock, and it instantaneously accelerated beyond human capability. Wasn't China, wasn't Russia, wasn't any technologically known nation. So now you can see it. So that video you showed was cool, but look at the 15 assets that George and I released. Watch the last one. It's called Syria UAP 2021, Apparent Instantaneous Acceleration. And that's what our government labeled it.
This whole thing about Area 51, I mean, what is Area 51? I know it's in the Nevada desert. What does the government say is there? And how much veracity has been genuinely established about the whole 1947 Roswell crash and so on, the supposed transportation to Area 51 for reverse engineering of aliens and so on? How much of any of this has been verified at all?
Yeah, 100% of it has been verified that there was a crash. And this is historic document. There was a crash of something, and it was actually taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, the lore of Area 51, the only reason you know that word, other than Obama was the first president to ever say it, was that George Knapp in 1989 brought forward a man named Bob Lazar. And Bob Lazar said we had 9 flying saucers in a hangar at a site called Site 4 at Area 51. It's a sub-base just south called Papoose Lake. George didn't know if he was telling the truth. He said that in 1989. That's why you know the term Area 51 and associate it with UAP or UFOs. Where they hold these craft, these material, we don't need to guess. On congressional record, one of those locations was put in writing after by a man named Lou Elizondo. You know, it's a controversial figure, a guy that says, is he telling us the truth? He is, and he told you the truth about that. It was called Pax River. So that is one location where some of these materials were there because, Piers, for your audience, documented by our own government and testified to in Congress, there was supposed to be a transfer from Lockheed Martin to a program called AWSAP, Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program. The $22 million reported by New York Times wasn't for the group called ATIP, like they reported. They got that wrong. They'll admit that to you. It was to a group run by a guy named Dr. James Lakatsky, who ran the Defense Intelligence Agency's UFO program. And he actually came on my show with George, and he admitted to the world, because he had authority to do so and told us, he admitted to one UFO, non-human intelligence-built craft that our government has in possession. You'd think this is world news. No, just on a little podcast with me and George, only time he's ever talked publicly. So we have them. Hal Puthoff on the Joe Rogan podcast, the scientist that has worked on this for years, said we have 10 or more in our United States possession. So now you have people talking out who have nothing to gain, who are under NDAs, who have signed their lives away, who are scientists and physicists who have worked on this, told you we have them, and now you know one location. So Area 51 is kind of like the catchphrase. And there's a lot of great patriotic work being done for both of our nations at Area 51. Maybe they have a storage facility, don't know. They did in 1989, and it was called S4. It And it was a man named Bob Lazar that told the world about it, and they didn't believe him until now.
Well, let's play the clip from Obama in which he references this.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
There was something shifty about the whole way Obama dealt with that question, and then the reining back afterwards, I have to say.
He wants to tell us.
Yeah, of course he does. And he knows a lot more than he's letting on, I think. They're probably not allowed to talk about it for the reasons we discussed, but they should do. Before we bring in other panel members, there's a question that my team are very keen for me to ask you, which is, why is it in popular culture, whenever aliens abduct people, they always get the information from them via the technique of an anal probe?
Okay. I'm really glad that we can have this banter, because we have now moved past this. We have moved past this. Those are things that people say to try to dismiss what's right in front of their eyes. So I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to give you something better, because I'm not sticking around for your panel. This is not about debate. Have a great panel. I want to tell you 4 things.
Thank you.
Right now, we're talking yesterday and today. There's a discussion at the Pentagon and the White House from people that work with messaging. And they're debating if radical honesty has to be the foundation of the 4 things that they're supposed to figure out how to say. One is formal admission of the known facts about UFOs, UAP. 2, formal admission of the unknowns. 3, a formal acknowledgement of UFO presence and reality, that we're not alone, that we never have been, it seems. And 4, very important, they must articulate the primary definition, or I'd say preliminary definitions to the public, their determinations to date, and the global defense concerns that have caused the secrecy in the first place. And if we achieve this over the next days, months, maybe during the State of the Union address, if they say it, it'd be amazing. If we achieve this, it's one small step, but it's a great leap for humankind. The implications are astounding. So I just want to thank you for talking about UAP like this. Some of us have fought really hard. There's a lot of us that have. Public demand is going to get us the truth, and it's going to take time. Because I think there's a song, change takes time.
It certainly does. And let's be honest, in the annals of universe history, it's actually not that long at all. So let's see what happens. I think it's fascinating that you've now got 2 presidents talking about aliens in the space of a week. That alone is game-changing. Jeremy Corbell, fascinating to discuss all this with you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks for covering this.
Well, here to debate whether aliens really are amongst us is Dr. Michael Shermer, the founder of Skeptic magazine and author of the new book, Truth, What It Is, How to Find It, Why It Still Matters, and the renowned UFO investigator, journalist Jesse Michels. Welcome to both of you. Dr. Michael Shermer, welcome to Uncensored. You've said that the vast majority, 95%, of supposed UFO sightings can be put down to ordinary terrestrial explanations, balloons, camera lens effects, visual illusions, or extraordinary terrestrial explanations, Russian or Chinese spy planes or drones capable of feats of physics and aerodynamics unheard of in the US. And you further said, I think it's highly likely that aliens are out there somewhere in the cosmos. In a galaxy of 100 billion stars, there will be 100 billion sun-like stars, 1 billion Earth-like planets, 100 million planets with life, 10 million planets with intelligent life, and 1 million planets with intelligent life capable of radio technology, which is kind of mind-boggling. But putting those 2 things together, I guess my first obvious question to you is, all right, you've covered 95% of the sightings. Is it possible that the remaining 5% are genuinely, this million planets with intelligent life sending stuff down to us.
Oh, yes, of course. It's entirely possible. But is it true? The fact that I would like it to be true, because it would be the greatest discovery in the history of science, doesn't make it true. So it's unfortunate Jeremy Corbell doesn't want to hear what the skeptics have to say. I've challenged him many times on X. He doesn't even acknowledge me. I finally got a $1,000 bet with Avi Loeb that we're not going to find aliens, but Jeremy's, in my opinion, wrapped up in a religious fervor and faith-based. I mean, he mentioned Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar claimed that he graduated from MIT and Caltech. He didn't even attend either one. Stan Friedman, the ufologist, was the one who exposed that. So the moment you lie about something obviously checkable, like your degrees, your credentials, then why believe anything else? So anyway, that's just kind of the short answer to that. What you're after there is what Obama clarified after his initial statement was that, I mean, out there somewhere, there probably is intelligent life. And I would agree with that. Most scientists do agree with that. That doesn't mean there is. We haven't found it yet, but the telescopes we're developing now, we probably will eventually within, 50 to 100 years, we'll know for sure. But at the moment, we don't know. So all we have is probabilities, but that's a separate question from have they actually come here? So the argument I make in the book is that it's possible, but very, very unlikely. I'd give it less than a 1% on a Bayesian scale. I think the distances between the stars are so vast. If the Voyager spacecraft, which is hauling ass at like 60,000 miles an hour, if it were going to the nearest star, which it isn't, it would take 70,000 years to get there, which is a long time to sit there with your tray back and your chair back and your tray table down. It's just unlikely that they've come here. And I think it's really a religious kind of impulse that there's somebody out there vastly superior to us that knows we're here, and that's religion.
Of course, if there were entities that were vastly superior to us, then the time it might take them to get from where they are to us could be massively faster, right? So you're basing your logic about it on how fast we could do something. But it must, I've thought it's highly likely that there are more intelligent beings and people on planets out there. Why wouldn't there be? Why are we the special one? And if they are more intelligent, if they are more sophisticated, then the time scales you're putting on why it seems so implausible actually would be irrelevant because they might be able to get here like that.
Well, of course, Piers, I would change my mind in a heartbeat if tomorrow Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth or Trump himself says, we have the aliens, here they are. And it's covered by ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox. Everybody shows it, just like the Chinese spy balloon. No one doubts that. No one talks about the credentials of the pilots that shot down the Chinese spy balloon. We don't need any of that because we have the Chinese spy balloon. So I would change my mind tomorrow. I would pay Avi Loeb his $1,000 and that would be it. But instead, we have yet to get that. And I've been hearing this since we started Skeptic Magazine. Here's volume 1, number 1 from 1992. I've been hearing that since we started the magazine. Disclosure's coming any day now. And if you want to go back before that, Carl Sagan in the 1970s was talking about that. Where is the evidence? And the answer is always it's classified. We can't show it to you. The men in black, the whistleblowers, the grainy videos, the blurry photographs. Just show it to us. I mean, if we have the aliens, I'll change my mind tomorrow. Just show it to us.
Okay, Jesse Michels. He makes a good point. Let's see it. There are a lot of hypotheses about what believers speculate about alien sightings and what they may be. The top 5, I'll just rattle through these and get your view afterwards. One is extraterrestrial hypothesis. It states that UFOs are physical spacecraft or probes piloted by intelligent beings from other planets. The second one is interdimensional hypothesis. This theory suggests that UFOs are not from other planets, but from other dimensions or parallel universes that coexist alongside our own. Then there's crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, suggests that an advanced non-human civilization might already be living right here on Earth in secret, perhaps deep underwater, underground, or even disguised amongst us. Time traveler hypothesis. Some researchers purpose that aliens are actually humans from a distant future. Their humanoid appearance is cited as evidence of future evolutionary changes in our own species. And then there's the Earth Zoo hypothesis. In this scenario, Earth is treated like a nature preserve or a zoo where we are observed from a distance to allow our society to evolve naturally. So they're the top 5 hypotheses to try and explain alien sightings and so on. But before we come to what you think of those, you believe aliens exist, one, and do you believe they have visited our planet?
I believe non-human intelligence exists, and so that's, I think, why that term is being used more than aliens, which is just one of the hypotheses that you mentioned. I think there's a preponderance, there's an abundance of evidence that should shift the consensus now in the open source world that there is some intelligence between man and, let's say, some ineffable God, above us. There's an intelligence above us doing all sorts of crazy things around our nuclear facilities, our energy grids, our weapons installations, and that's been happening for the longest time, since the dawn of the nuclear age in the 40s. So are you guys getting me, by the way? I just see myself here. Okay,
yeah, we are,
nice. Yeah. Okay, great. So I believe that, we can say without a shadow of a doubt that there is an intelligence beyond humans that are tampering with our nukes, that are showing up around facilities. And I think the skeptics always rest on there's no definitive evidence of extraterrestrials, which is a cop-out, because that's a conclusion, which is a hypothesis as to what we're seeing. But there's so much evidence that we are seeing stuff. Michael Shermer just wrote actually a piece in the Washington Post basically saying that all UFOs are chalked up to number 1, space trash, number 2, U-2s or SR-71 kind of modern equivalents, recon planes, deep black American programs, or number 3, religiosity. And what I would say is explain, the thousands of documents that are declassified from American intelligence from 1945 to 1955, before the U-2 was ever even commissioned, and before 1957, when Sputnik, the first satellite, was in space, where you have UFOs discussed widely in intelligence circles. Explain the 100,000 plus global intelligence documents around UFOs. You have Gaipan, like, the equivalent of, Blue Book, the Air Force project from the 50s and 60s in France, basically acknowledging the reality of this stuff. Even if you look at ERA, which is the American, version of this, the modern version of this, a third of their cases, 34% to be exact, are completely unknown and unresolved. So this should be fertile grounds for science and where to look. And so, yeah, jumping to, specific explanation like extraterrestrial might be kind of, a little, fast to do that, or presumptuous rather. But to answer your question about the different hypotheses, I think none of those are mutually exclusive. So to get from Earth to Proxima Centauri B, the closest, habitable planet, that would take 80,000 years via chemical combustion. So you would need some sort of space-time metric engineering and basically time travel in order to get there. Space and time travel are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they're both needed in order to travel interstellar. And that is a definitive sort of debunk against the, Elon argument that we're going to be able to go interstellar with the chemical combustion. It just literally doesn't work with physics. You need new physics. And anytime you have an empirical anomaly that's observed thousands of times and reported at the highest levels from presidents to fighter pilots to civilians, whenever you have an anomaly that's observable repeatably, and then you have a theoretical model of physics, the anomaly always wins. Whether it's black body radiation before the quantum revolution, the orbit of Mercury, which wasn't explained via Newton and is better explained via Einstein, or UFOs. We're going to have a theoretical model that explains UFOs, but saying the anomaly isn't real because of science is just bad, mushy brain thinking.
Okay. Michael Shermer, I want to show you what Jeremy Corbell put out a couple of weeks ago. These are 2 videos purportedly captured by US military drones in the Middle East, showing 3 objects flying in a triangular pattern. We're looking at it again now. I mean, what is your explanation for what we might be seeing there?
those are probably drones or just aircraft, flying in formation. I do show in my book the kinesia illusion. This is where you put 3 triangles together like that, and then the brain fills in what the rest of it looks like as if it's a solid object. It's a very common phenomenon. Many of the UAP sightings are in that triangular formation. I should note, back to the previous comments, all of that is possible. I mean, time travel, warp speed, these kinds of things that we see in science fiction, that's entirely possible. That, if there are aliens, they're not going to be just 5 years ahead of us. Like you hear, they crashed in Roswell in New Mexico in 1940s, and that's where we got silicon chips instead of vacuum tubes, something like that. They're not going to be just barely ahead of us. They will be, light years ahead, millions of years ahead of us. So yes, they could have that physics and technology, but do they in fact? Has that in fact happened? That we do not know. So again, just, show me. I hear the stories about Bigfoot. Okay, show me the body. And it's always the kind of the videos, like the videos you just showed. It's like you can't quite make out what's going on there. It's grainy, it's blurry. The mind then fills in those gaps, and that's always a problem. So then, as for Jesse's comment about the many anomalies, yes, anomalies are important. The perturbation of Mercury's orbit led to Einstein. Okay, if that's in fact the case, then I'm in favor of it. But will that in fact happen? Because what we don't hear are all the missed opportunities that failed experiments and scientific theories that never panned out. So we have a survivorship bias. So you're highlighting the ones that turn out to be true. If the alien thing turns out to be true, okay, this would be great. I would love this to be true, like Carl Sagan back in 1980. I would love it to be true, but is it in fact true? And, it's just so frustrating. Aren't you guys all frustrated? You've been hearing this too for years.
The question I would have, I'll let Jesse respond to that. My quick question for you, I have no idea what the answer is, but do you believe in God? Are you a religious man?
Oh no, I'm an atheist. Yeah, I'm an agnostic. Technically, yeah. I don't know, and you don't. I don't know, and you don't either. Is my quick take on agnosticism. But no, I don't believe in God. No, and the research on this, by the way, I discuss this in the book, is that people that score high on need of spirituality and awe and wonder, but are low in religiosity, are more likely to believe that aliens are visiting Earth. So that's kind of the part of the thesis of my idea here, that this is kind of a religious impulse. It's a way of telling us, just like the original 1951 film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's a Christ allegory. Klaatu comes down from on high, delivers the message. He's killed by the authorities. He's put in the tomb. And then Gort the robot pulls him out of the tomb and brings him back to life. He resurrects him. He delivers the message to Earthlings about the nuclear weapons, and he ascends to heaven in the spaceship. It's a Christ allegory. It's the oldest story in all of mythology. I think what we're witnessing here is mythology.
Okay. Jesse, what's your response to that?
I think everybody does have a religious impulse, and I think skepticism is an embodiment of the religious impulse as well. Anybody who's had a debate with Richard Dawkins, for example, would know that he's sort of this, hyper-moralistic, hyper-Christian thinker. And so there you go, Piers. You've experienced it yourself.
No, but I had a whole debate with him. Funny enough, I had a whole debate with Richard Dawkins because I said the reason I believe there must be something superior to us out there. I was raised a Catholic. I believe in God. I said, but notwithstanding that, I said, the reason I believe there's something superior as an entity out there is because nobody with a human brain can explain to me what was there before nothing. So if you subscribe to the Big Bang theory, okay, fine. I can understand the scientific logic behind it, but what was there before the Big Bang? What is nothing? What's there before nothing? No human can explain any of that to me. Right? They start talking in kind of, scientific gibberish, but they can't actually give me an answer. But so therefore, to me, it makes obvious sense. There must be something with a superior brain that can answer questions like that, which must be a more superior entity. That's my logical brain. As if I was Mr. Spock on the Starship Enterprise.
Well said, Piers. I think to put it differently, I think space and time in physics have scaling problems. And so our cosmological models of the universe, I think, are going to be really dicey. We've never detected black matter, dark matter. It's just this sort of, mathematical placeholder. Dark energy is not one of the four fundamental forces. It's just this sort of expansionary force in the universe. The Big Bang itself keeps getting the dates keep changing. It's very confusing. And so it is the epitome of human hubris to say that we have this perfect understanding of cosmology. And the longer you go back in time and the bigger you go in space, it's like a rocket that's 1 degree off course that ends up 99 degrees off course, as it scales, or error propagation in computer science, where you have one error that continues to propagate. And so if you have anomalies at a small scale, they're just going to sort of metastasize at larger scale. I want to address, Michael's point on, not having data. I think we have an abundance of data. We have materials in a lab right now held by a Stanford professor who is a microbiologist. He's tenured, he's a Nobel nominee. His name is Gary Nolan. He spun out, a 9-figure company. He's as well respected, as it gets. And he has, materials in his lab that come from a 1957 crash in Ubatuba, Brazil, on the beach. And they contain silicon with a purity level that he's never seen before, and just doesn't occur on Earth, and magnesium with isotope ratios implying some sort of neutron bombardment that also don't pattern match to anything on Earth or asteroids. And he's doing mass spectrometry on these. And so that is real data. There's an astronomer.
But Jesse,
go for it. Yeah.
Jesse, let me ask you the same question I asked Jeremy earlier, which is, why would the government today, with all that is being, everyone's more transparent these days. One of the big problems with distrusting government from the people is because they just got fed up with lack of transparency. So more and more things are being laid out to us, right? Why would a government be so determined? Why would any government be so determined, but particularly the United States, to suppress information about UFOs if they had it? Why would Obama look so shifty, slightly answering the question, then backtracking when there's a furore? Trump's now saying he's going to release it all, declassify it all. I don't understand why there has to be this massive veil of secrecy. We're all big grown-up people. Why can't we just deal with the fact that there may be some aliens and show us? I mean, to Dr. Shermer's point, which is a good one, but just show me.
Yeah, no, look, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel the exact same way, and I'm extremely frustrated. Obama, to the point that you made earlier with Jeremy, that he is being sort of, cheeky. He's literally producing a documentary right now on Betty and Barney Hill, the first alien abductees in 1961 in the U.S. So clearly he's interested in the topic. And his director of national intelligence, James Clapper, and his CIA director, Brennan, are literally in the Age of Disclosure documentary, where they tacitly endorse a multi-generational, multi-decade long UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering program being hidden, behind basically closed doors in U.S. intelligence. And so he definitely knows a lot more than he's letting on there. The reason I think they are being cheeky and they aren't just, coming out with this sort of thing is because these crafts seem to fly over our most sensitive defense sites. I'm talking, Vandenberg, Malmstrom nuclear missile base, F.E. Warren, all these sites, Savannah River site, all across the U.S. with impunity. So you are essentially admitting that, aerial dominance exists, and it's on behalf of something that you don't even fully know. You have these hypotheses as to what they are, but they have complete, aerial dominance over you. And God forbid you get one of these things wrong. And, one of these incursions are actually China or Russia, that's even more scary. And so the fact that you don't know that this is happening and it's happening over our most sensitive sites, I think explains it all. I also think there might be some very disruptive technology hidden with some of these things that might be very bad for kind of establishment institutions. But I think the first thing really is all you need to know.
Dr. Shermer, at a Davos panel earlier this year, Elon Musk was asked if he thought aliens were amongst us and said, "I am one." and people took that to be a joke. But having met Elon a couple of times and to see the sheer scale of what he does with his supposedly human brain, I kind of think he probably is an alien.
Different planet. He feels like it's from a different planet.
I think he is. I think it's highly likely he's an alien.
He has said that, when he was head of Doge, that, he had an all pass, look at everything that's secret, and he never saw aliens. And he told Joe Rogan, I'll tell you if there's aliens, but I haven't seen anything. Obama says, I haven't seen anything. Clinton said, I hadn't seen anything, all the way back. It's again, just show us. Now, Sean Kirkpatrick, who was head of the government UAP program for 2 years, when he quit, he said, I looked everywhere I could and found nothing. So here's what I predict will happen. I think Trump will come out and say, all right, I put Pete Hegseth and Marco in charge of this. We all looked into it. We didn't find anything. So what you'll have is the other hypotheses that you put forth. Oh, it's a interdimensional being. They're invisible. They're non-detectable. We don't know that they're there, or it's a deep, deep, deep state secret that even the president, Secretary of War, Secretary of State doesn't know about. All right, all these things are possible, but very, very unlikely. I just think it's a phenomenon that's not going to go away, like a religion. And if you would allow me, Piers, to address the why there's something rather than nothing question, because I have a chapter on in the book. I think it's one of these known unknowables. I think it's like Stephen Hawking said, what's north of the North Pole? It's you can't get there. We hit epistemological foundation, bedrock. There's no more where to go. And your answer, well, God did it, is not a very good explanation, because it doesn't tell us how God did it.
What's your answer? What was there before? What was there before nothing?
So, what do you mean by nothing? Because no thing means there's not a thing, but there's not even that. So Hawking's explanation, some of the other cosmologists I talked to tell me that, time began with the Big Bang. There was nothing before it.
So what was there before the Big Bang?
What was there before the Big Bang? Maybe another universe. And you have a multiverse. You have multiple explosions. So
time. Yeah. So just to be clear, hang on. So time did not begin with the Big Bang. You just disproved their theory immediately.
Our time, but there could have been previous times. Yes, this is a cyclical.
So there are
universe.
rival times.
We don't know this. Yeah, we don't know this is true.
The point is,
I'm just saying it's a hypothesis.
The point is, your brain, and my brain, and Jesse's brain cannot actually answer those questions. No human brain can. That's the Elon Musk can't answer it, and he has the biggest brain I've ever seen in my life.
But God as an explanation is not a good explanation. How did God do it?
Well, you know what? It's as good as any other. I've heard.
So it could just be I don't know and you don't either, and full stop. And then you make the leap of faith, and I don't. There's really no difference. It's a different kind of truth. I'm claiming it's not a scientific truth. It's a
That's true. I think that's right. Well, Polymarket, the money in the Polymarket market is currently saying there's a 14% chance that aliens exist, and that the US will confirm it before 2027. Would you take those odds, Jesse?
Jesse, yeah, sorry.
I don't know if I would take those odds. I think this is going to be a jagged process from here. So I think it's like the Epstein stuff. There's going to be some smoke. The smoke is going to build. I think more is going to come out in this sort of staggered process. I think you're going to have this sort of push. I do think the Trump thing is kind of the line in the sand where a president has never gone that far as to sort of implicitly acknowledge this stuff and say that Obama's revealing classified information, basically implying that, aliens existing underground at Area 51 is possibly classified. So I do think that's going to galvanize sort of, people searching for truth here so much that I do think things start to come out as to kind of the timeline. I think it's tough. It does feel like things are accelerating with the advent of LLMs and AI. People can make connections here, I think, much faster. And so I'm very excited. I would go long, that Polymarket. In 2023, I made a bet with Mick West for $10,000 that the consensus, I think, in 10 years would shift to 80% plus academia and, elite military and government basically accepting that we are not alone in the universe. And I stand by that. And I think, I wish Polymarket were more liquid then, because I think I would have gotten really good odds. And I think they've shifted a ton since then.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Shermer, just finally, I mean, you did say that you look forward to the administration being really transparent and sending their people out, revealing all they've got. Of course, we have had that recently, a similar journey with the Epstein files, where they were going to be really transparent, then they suddenly shut them down, and then they got forced into being sort of transparent. It turned out there was a ton of stuff in there. So if we use the Epstein files as the parallel, maybe in a year's time we'll have gone through a similar process, and there'll be 6 million documents of your evidence for you.
I would welcome it, and I'm with you. Like, why would anyone want to keep this a secret? NASA itself would go straight to Congress and go, oh my God, we discovered aliens. We need to double our budget. Right? I mean, every scientific institution would go, hey, we need more funding for this. Far from keeping it a secret. And there's a lot of polls on religious people. Would you be bothered if we discovered extraterrestrial intelligence out there somewhere, or that they came here? And the answer overwhelmingly is no, not at all. God could do whatever he wants. It's a big universe. Nothing wrong with it that there's elsewhere out there.
You know what? It's a fascinating debate. A bit like when I debated with Richard Hawkins. In the end, we may never get answers, but it would be great fun if Richard Hawkins suddenly got visited by God, and it would be great fun if you, Dr. Shermer, suddenly got a knock on the door from an ET-like alien, and I'd love to be there for when it happens. To it.
I'm waiting for it.
And if those two things could happen live and uncensored, I'd be a happy boy. Guys, thank you very much.
We'll come on your show.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Piers.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Piers.
All the best.
Thank you. Bye, Jesse.
Cheers. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.